Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on the opposition pushing for an early return to the legislature. But first, striking a tone.
Our commitment to NATO's Article 5 is unwavering. Canada strongly opposes tariffs over Greenland and calls for focused talks to achieve our shared objectives of security and prosperity in the Arctic.
The Prime Minister addressing Donald Trump's expansionist threats toward Greenland in a speech to leaders at the World Economic Forum, a speech that called for nations to unite in a shifting world order. Joining us now, Rob Huebert, Director of the Centre for Military Security and Strategic Studies at the University of Calgary. Rob, good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Michael.
All right. Donald Trump doubling down in Davos again today. What is the U.S. president serving to do in this dogged pursuit of claiming Greenland? Do the words match the motivations?
Well, unfortunately, we're starting to see that it does. Remember that Trump, of course, has always been seemingly better with our enemies than he is with his allies, and we seem to see this playing out. The critical point, though, is, of course, the Americans have come out with their security doctrine, and their most recent policy statement is that they are moving towards the control of the hemisphere. They talk about they are the major player within the Western Hemisphere, and we see this playing out in Venezuela, but we also see this playing out with his claims to Greenland. The bizarre thing with the Greenland claim is, of course, is that the Americans already have everything that they could possibly have. They have a military base. They have the right to expand it if they want. So you sit there and you say, why would he then risk the relationship with the rest of the alliance, be it with Denmark, Canada, and so forth? And that's the part that just does not it doesn't add up. It's just sort of like this is going to hurt American security, not help it.
Well, now, how far do you see the U.S. administration willing to go here? Should Donald Trump be taken at his word today that he won't use force?
Yeah, I think he has to be taken very much at his word, because recognize this. We often just say, okay, so all he has done is Venezuela, and Obama went after bin Laden, and Bush went after Noriega. So it's happened before. Let's not get too upset with it. But remember, Trump has shown that he is very willing to use force within Canada. Look at the creation of ICE and the way in which he is using it only against democratic states, which demonstrates that there's a political intent to how he uses force. And I think given the fact that he has constantly talked about the need to be in control of the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, that means we've got to take him very seriously in this context, because he doesn't seem to care about how much he's hurting American collective security with the NATO alliance. And I think that tells us, yeah, we got to take him at his word.
Where allies are concerned, to what degree does the Trump dialogue serve to weaken NATO?
Totally. I mean, when you start here in Canada talking about invoking Article 5, which is if we are attacked, we expect other NATO countries to come to our assistance, and the attacker is the United States, that's got to be a serious discussion amongst NATO members. We've heard Macron and Steimer talk about the fact that they are willing to go to the assistance of Greenland should they face. I mean, this is one of the biggest breaks or threats that the NATO alliance has faced. NATO countries have gone to war with each other. The Turks and the Greeks did it over Cyprus, but they were not the major power that the United States was. And it's not a question of a direct invasion of basically another country. And this is what, if you look at the front page of the Globe yesterday, you see the military is in fact preparing for the possibility of an invasion. Very, very difficult, very problematic for the NATO alliance.
Okay, so maybe on that point, and we'll mention that the U.S. president posted an image of a doctored map that included Canada covered in an American flag the other day. So in defending our own sovereignty, where do you stand on developing Canadian contingency plans?
Well, we should have been doing this a long time ago because there's been the ongoing recognition that the Russians are a threat within the Arctic context. And we started to see the activities as early as 2008, 2007. So we should have been all along much more serious about following through on Arctic security for ourselves. Now, of course, we've got the problem that we've talked big about protection of Arctic sovereignty, but we haven't done anything. We don't have the replacement for the fighters. We don't have the submarines. We don't have the updated surveillance systems. And so, I mean, at this point, we can try to start moving on those as fast as possible and hope that Trump is just, basically yanking our chain on that. But there's a saying that if you base a policy on hope, you are going to be inviting disaster. And so ultimately, we can try to get common cause with our allies. We can try to make it as clear as possible that it is against American interest to act in this way, and that we will be willing to take the steps necessary to make it as painful as possible for the Americans. But that's about it.
Any degree of concern over the separatist push in Alberta having an impact on Canadian sovereignty? The group behind the petition for a referendum confirmed to us that their representatives have gone to Washington on more than one occasion to communicate with American government officials.
Very concerned because, first and foremost, we've already identified that countries have tried to interfere with Canada and misinformation, political interference. We identified the Chinese, Russians, Iranians, Pakistanis, and India. It was in the Hogue report. We have no doubt that the Americans have a very good equal capability if they so choose to direct it. We know that separatist groups are always, within a geopolitical context, they are always utilized as basically division elements to divide a society. And let's face it, if we are facing an American threat, if Trump is serious, one of the most strategic moves that the Americans can do is try to divide us, try to find, if we sort of take this back to World War II and we think in terms of the fact that the Germans were able to make common cause with individuals within Norwegian society. The term quisling now means the individual that basically is a traitor within a society. But remember, quisling at his time was part of the Norwegian government, and in fact was able to say, hey, Germany, we actually believe in your Aryan devices, and he becomes sort of the pretend leader of Norway during the occupation. So yes, even if these individuals have no real contact, I'm not saying that they're projections from the American government. The American government will move to, in fact, utilize them as a divide issue to weaken Canada. So even if they turn around and say, we have nothing to do with that planning, we're not connecting, in this type of environment, that type of activity is very dangerous for the country.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there for time. As always, appreciate your time, Rob. Thank you kindly, sir.
Michael, my pleasure.
Rob Huebert is director of the Center for Military, Security, and Strategic Studies at the University of Calgary.